Coming to you from the mountains and the plain. The only conservative voices brave enough to push back. This is the Conservative Daily Podcast with Joe Otto.
That's what the Second Amendment was designed to do. If you're going to do something to nullify or take away my rights under the Constitution, come get it.
Max McGuire.
When you look at politicians on the left, they need to convince people that they are victims.
A resistance to the resistance. And now your hosts, Joe Otto and Max McGuire.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of the Conservative Daily Podcast. My name is Max McGuire. We are waiting on Joe. He is getting out of a meeting, so he said he's going to join us in progress. So when he does, we'll go to the split screen. But until then, I'm going to start it alone. We don't want to go too late. So today we are talking about the Republican Convention. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the best parts of the Republican Convention. Anyone who doesn't know, we streamed the Republican Convention all 4 nights on our channel. We had lots of people having a lot of fun. Mr. Producer, go ahead and throw up that image that I sent you. This is how we did it. We did it with the C-SPAN stream in the middle, and then we had ABC News, PBS, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, and then we were also tracking Laura, just to show when all the outlets cut away. It was a really successful way of showing it, so we're going to keep doing that when it comes to Trump's speeches, when it comes to Trump's events, right? Because while C-SPAN and places like Right Side Broadcasting do cover Trump's speeches in full, the mainstream media outlets, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, don't. So we're not going to do as many of those boxes, but on future events, I probably won't be hosting all of them, but we will have that side-by-side, picture-in-picture comparison so you can see in real time what they're showing and what they're not. I thought it was really effective. So today I want to go through just a couple, and I had a really hard time picking some. I started picking a bunch, and I realized that I actually had accumulated like 50 cuts, and that would make my producer, Josh, it would make his head explode. So I narrowed it down to about 13, a baker's dozen. I figured that would be fair. So I want to go through these. These are not by any means the only cuts, the only good parts. There were tons of other ones. But I thought that these were especially influential. Especially influential. And again, I don't include everyone who spoke. I thought the whole thing was great. In comparison to the DNC, which was such a snooze fest, which was so negative, down on America, I thought that the RNC was uplifting. They talked about the dangers of the Democrat policies when necessary, and then presented how Donald Trump would offer an alternative that would bring us to a much better and brighter future. So I want to go through these, but before I do, I want to start by saying something I thought was showing you what I thought was probably one of the biggest disparities between the Democrats and the Republicans, and that is the fireworks at the end of their presidential candidate speech. So let's go ahead and go to cut 1. So on the RNC, they have Trump's fireworks, literally spelling out Trump 2020. Meanwhile, Joe Biden has just a few fireworks, and those idiots are standing on the stage wearing masks. So Biden's with his wife, Harris is with her husband. They're social distance, but they're still wearing masks in the open air. I thought that was so foolish, and I thought that that is a pretty good symbol for how different both of the conventions were. I thought that that was a very good metaphor overall. But let's go ahead and play another one. This is from Trump. I thought this was probably one of his best lines. And it was Trump basically criticizing Democrats for their energy policies. And he had a good zinger in at the end. Let's go ahead and listen to cut 2.
Production of American oil, coal, shale, and natural gas laying waste to the economies of Pennsylvania, Ohio, Texas, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Colorado, and New Mexico, destroying those states, absolutely destroying those states and others. Millions of jobs will be lost, and energy prices will soar. These same policies led to crippling power outages in California just last week. Everybody saw that. Tremendous power outage. Nobody's seen anything like it, but we saw that last week in California. How can Joe Biden claim to be an ally of the light when his own party can't even keep the lights on?
I thought that was probably one of his best lines. He had a couple really good zingers in there, but I thought that one was hilarious. There was also another point in his speech when there was a long applause in the audience, and you saw that he stepped back and waited. And then he came in with a line that's just so simple, yet so truthful. It made me crack up when I was watching it on the live stream last night. Let's go ahead and play cut 3.
Joe Biden is weak. He takes his marching orders from liberal hypocrites who drive their cities into the ground while fleeing far from the scene of the wreckage. These same liberals want to eliminate school choice while they enroll their children in the finest private schools in the land. They want to open our borders while living in Waldorf compounds and communities in the best neighborhoods in the world. They want to defund the police while they have armed guards for themselves. This November, we must turn the page forever on this failed political class. The fact is, I'm here. What's the name of that building?
So I like that line where he literally he pauses for applause, and then he says, he comes back, and you think that there's like some big next part of the speech, and he just goes with Joe Biden is weak, and then he goes into something completely different, not even talking about the weakness. I thought that was hilarious. Lots of good zingers. Trump spoke for about 70 minutes last night. Mainstream media was furious because they had to go 70 minutes without interjecting with a fact check. They were fuming. But I thought that those were two of Trump's best moments from the speech. But honestly, it was all true. It was all great. Last night, we actually counted how many truths. So we did the truth counter for our 4 nights of streams. And the truth counter on the 4th night, let me get to it. It reached over 6,000. I think it was close to 6,200 truthful statements that we counted. And the lie counter was just shy. The cutaway, mainstream media cutaway, was just shy of 140 cutaways. That's 140 times in just 3 days, because we didn't do that the first night. 140 times in 3 days that the mainstream media cut away from the convention, either for their own fact check, or in the case of ABC News, because they wanted to show a Mulan commercial, or in Fox News' case, because they wanted to go to their commentators and let them have a say on what they thought. Like, there were actually times when Fox News was, instead of showing you the convention, having their commentators explain what was going on. And there was one point last night, I kid you not, where all 5 of those channels, ABC News, CNN, PBS, Fox News, MSNBC, all 5 of them, there was a point last night when all 5 of them had cut away from the convention, and not one of them was showing what was going on at the convention with the volume on. That's how shameful the mainstream media has gotten. There was a point last night, and there were a couple points earlier, where they all agreed, all those editorial teams agreed, that what was happening at the RNC was not worth airing to the public. And that's shameful. That's disgusting. There was no moment like that for the DNC. So it just shows you the ulterior motives within the mainstream media. So let's get into some of the other speeches. Obviously, the big tearjerker from last night was Ann Dorn. Her husband was killed by looters and rioters responding to an alarm at a pawn shop. Her speech last night was absolutely. I cried. I was crying on the stream. It was so emotional, the way she described it. If you haven't seen it, you can watch the whole thing. I don't want to play the whole thing. We're not going to play the whole speeches because that's a lot of time. But I want to play this short clip so you can get a feel for what Ann Dorn was saying last night. Let's go ahead and play cut 4.
David is never coming back to me. He was murdered by people who didn't know and just didn't care. He would have done anything to help them. Violence and destruction are not legitimate forms of protest. They do not safeguard Black lives. They only destroy them. President Trump understands this, has offered federal help to restore order in our communities. In a time when police departments are short on resources and manpower, we need that help. We should accept that help. We must heal before we can affect change, but we cannot heal amid devastation and chaos. President Trump knows we need more Davids in our communities, not fewer. We need to come together in peace and remember that every life is precious.
Wow. It's spot on. Absolutely spot on. Every outlet last night covered her speech. They had to. They were forced to. They would have been hell to pay if they cut away from that speech. And it was probably one of the most emotional moments of the night. Without a doubt, it was the biggest tearjerker. And that was hard because there were other emotional pleas last night. And from earlier, I mean, I thought the RNC did a great job of I said this at the start, but they did a great job of highlighting the promise of where we want to go, respecting where we've been, scars and warts and all, and explaining just how dangerous Democrats are when they're put in control. And I thought that Ann Dorn's speech last night was very good. It fit really, really well into that. So we're going to ask right now that everyone hit the share button, because while the mainstream media didn't show the whole thing, they didn't show many of these clips we're going to show you, people still need to see them. So in order to get this out to more people, we need to do three things. Hit the share button, like the video, and continue commenting. During the DNC, we had more comments on our live streams than the Democrats had on their official stream. Very funny. So do those three things and we'll get this out in front of more people, because people need to see this. And obviously, mainstream media didn't think they should have. This next one I thought was very powerful. Again, not going to play the whole speech, but this was Sister Byrne giving her speech and her plea to respect and protect the rights of preborn children. Let's go ahead and play cut 5.
We are called to stand up for life against the politically correct or fashionable of today. We must fight against a legislative agenda that supports and even celebrates destroying life in the womb. Keep in mind, the laws we create define how we see our humanity. And we must ask ourselves, what are we saying when we go into a womb and snuff out an innocent, powerless, voiceless life?
So it was very interesting. The Democrats had a priest and a nun. She said she was a nun, but I don't believe it. That said that abortion was an issue that was above their pay grade. That's BS. If you are the religious in this country, abortion is not above your pay grade. You have to speak out against the scourge of abortion. You have to. And I thought that the sister did a great job of putting that in perspective. Interestingly enough, MSNBC at that moment, right before that speech, they cut away. They cut away because they didn't want. MSNBC cut away every time there was someone that they suspected was going to be critical of abortion. That's what they did. That was one of MSNBC's biggest tells. If you saw there was an abortion speaker, an anti-abortion speaker, walking up to the podium, that was a tell, and you knew that MSNBC was about to cut away to commercial or to some other random fact check. They wouldn't show it. Other PBS was horrible. They were cutting away all the time. ABC News, they seemed to cut away. I said this before, all the time to show a commercial for Mulan, the new movie, or for Disney Plus. That was always the first commercial that played into the commercial break. They didn't want you to see what was going on. Interestingly enough, they silenced Sister Byrne. They censored her. They didn't actually carry her live. But every channel went live for former football coach Lou Holtz. They thought that that was safe. They thought that airing Lou Holtz's speech, since he's a football coach, nothing controversial. He's not going to talk about abortion. Oh, but he did. He made an impassioned plea to respect and protect the rights of the preborn child. And that the rights of the preborn child through pregnancy, that is a human being in the womb, So it was very funny watching MSNBC cut from Sister Byrne and then come back for Lou Holtz thinking it had nothing to do with abortion. And he got into that topic. He got into the pro-life message like a minute or so in, so they couldn't switch away at that point. I thought that was hilarious because I could feel the sweat dripping down the brow of those producers in the mainstream media outlets. But I want to play a bit of Lou Holtz's speech because he said something that I think is very effective. Now, I'm a Catholic. I don't think I've mentioned that on the show. I might have. I'm a Catholic, and I hate how liberal many Catholics are, because if you really want to live your faith, you cannot be for abortion. You just can't. It's incompatible. Lou Holtz is also a Catholic, and he used his speech to go after the hypocrisy of Joe Biden claiming to be a Catholic while also supporting abortion. I thought it was excellent. I thought what made it excellent was the fact you didn't expect that from a football coach, and every media outlet covered it. So let's go ahead and play a bit of that. This is where he calls Joe Biden a Catholic in name only. Let's go to cut 6.
That's President Trump. He says what he means what he says, and he's done what he said he would do at every single turn. One of the important reasons he has my trust is because nobody has been a stronger advocate for the unborn than President Trump. The Biden-Harris ticket is the most radically pro-abortion campaign in history. They and other politicians are Catholics in name only and abandon innocent lives. President Trump protects those lives. I trust President Trump. The second question I asked.
So I thought that was great. And again, anyone just coming in, what made that so great was that you had MSNBC, and I believe at that time it was PBS and ABC News, that cut away from the sister because they didn't want to air any critique of the Democrats' abortion policies. And they all came back to Lou Holtz because they can't stay away forever, right? They have to pick and choose what they cut away from. They come back to him, and he gets them right in the nose. I thought it was great. It was great. And it's great to hear that message coming from someone who is, obviously Lou Holtz is a very faithful man, right? But it's not what you expect. You don't expect the football coach to be talking about, just like you didn't expect that to come from the head of UFC when he was talking about Trump and making an impassioned plea. You don't expect that from sports figures. So to see that was really great. Let's stay on the sports theme. And let's go ahead and this was Herschel Walker. Herschel Walker, I thought, gave a great speech. But I thought the most powerful part of his speech was when he said Donald Trump isn't a racist and he considers it to be a personal insult to suggest that all these years, I think it was 37, 38 years, multiple decades, all these years, he's been really good, close friends with a racist. Now, anyone who doesn't know, Herschel Walker won the Heisman Trophy, I'm reading his Wikipedia page, won the Heisman Trophy in 1982. In the NFL, he played for the Vikings, the Eagles, the Giants, the Cowboys. And before that, he played for the New Jersey Generals, which I believe was owned by Trump in the U.S. Football League. Yeah, it was owned by Trump. He is a close friend of Donald Trump's. He is a sports phenomenon, right? He won the Heisman Trophy. You don't expect people like that to come to the DNC, and I think that's what the RNC. And I think that's what the Republicans did such a good job with, bringing in these unlikely, unexpected voices to give impassioned pleas, to make strong cases, and to change minds and hearts. So let's go ahead and play cut 10. This is from Herschel Walker.
It just shows you what a caring, loving father he is. It hurt my soul to hear the terrible names that people call Donald. The worst one is racist. I take it as a personal insult that people would think I've had a 37-year friendship with a racist. People who think that don't know what they're talking about. Growing up in the Deep South, I've seen racism up close. I know what it is, and it isn't Donald Trump. Just because someone loves and respects the flag, our national anthem, and our country, doesn't mean they don't care about social justice. I care about all those things.
All right, take it off.
Trump.
So I wanted to show that because that was a clip that was actually put out by a Democrat. And you can see at the bottom left, they had inserted a dancing blackface actor in a minstrel show. That's how the Democrats responded to Herschel Walker when he gave that speech. They called him an Uncle Tom. They said what he did was akin to someone in blackface dancing during a minstrel show. So I wanted to put that in there just so you could see what he was saying and how the Democrats responded to it. Disgusting. And that's why I think you're seeing so many black Democrats walking away from the Democrat Party. Right there, what you saw with that little edit. That was going viral all across social media. That little edit shows you how terrified they are, because if they weren't terrified, they wouldn't go out of their way to do that, to play the banjo as he's talking, and then insert the little scene from the minstrel show. They're terrified because they know it's effective. That when a black man, Heisman Trophy winner, sports superstar, friend of Donald Trump, gets up there and says he's not a racist, I consider it an offense, a personal offense, to suggest that I've been friends with a racist all this time. Democrats freak out. And you saw them freak out by them editing that and posting it. We also saw that when Melania Trump, let me see if I can find it. She gave a speech, and the Democrats were all accusing her of not being an American. Bette Midler. Let me see if I can find an image of Bette Midler's tweet. Bette Midler tweeted, "Oh God, here, let me send it to Mr. Producer. Mr. Producer, here it's coming, incoming. I didn't think I was going to talk about this, but we might as well. Okay, it's on the way, Mr. Producer. Bette Midler tweeted out, "Oh God, she can't speak English." Let's go ahead and put that up when you get it. There it is. From Bette Midler, "Oh God, she still can't speak English." Now, if a Republican said that, they'd be deemed a racist. They'd be deemed a xenophobe, a bigot. They throw all the different names. But when you are a Democrat, if you want to criticize an immigrant to this country for an accent, and Melania Trump speaks 5 languages. Let's just be clear. English is not her first language. I think it's her 5th language. She speaks 5 languages. So to see a Democrat go up there and criticize her like that, if a Republican did that, they'd be canceled. That would be cancel culture. That would be cancelable under the Democrats' rules. Absolutely. So I want you guys to leave a comment in the comment section what your favorite version, what your favorite speech or moment from the RNC was. Leave a comment in the comment section. We didn't get all of them because we can't fit 4 nights worth into one show, but we pulled out a lot of our favorites. So leave a comment in the comment section what your favorite was. I want to know. People asking, can you please send me that version of the Herschel Walker? I'd love to post that. Sure. Let me see how I can figure out how to do that. I'll be happy to, Myretta. Let's keep going because there was a lot to cover and I don't want to get too bogged down. So that was Herschel Walker. I went out of order a little bit because I wanted to stay on the sports theme. This one I thought was also powerful. Madison Cawthorn. Now, people don't know Madison Cawthorn got in a car crash and lost the use of his legs. He was going to go into the military. And he wasn't able to because he got in a car crash and became paralyzed from the waist down. Doctors said he would never walk again, probably never stand again. This was definitely, without a doubt, one of the most powerful moments from the convention. Let's go to cut 7.
Say to Americans who love our country, young and old, be a radical for freedom. Be a radical for liberty. And be a radical for our republic, for which I stand. One nation under God, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and may God bless America.
Powerful. Powerful. Democrats came back and said that he was insulting black people by standing. Not kidding. They said he was insulting the black narrative. He was basically, they accused him of standing for violence against black people by insinuating that because he stood up, that he was saying the kneelers are bad. He didn't actually say that. He just said, and for this republic for which I stand. He stood up. Let me see if I can find that tweet. It was so ridiculous. Yeah, it was a PBS reporter. Let me see if I can grab it. Yeah, I'm gonna send Mr. Producer an image of it. Okay, I just have to save the image. Sorry, guys. I'm going solo until Joe gets here, but I want to make sure that I send this and let you see this, because this was the PBS reporter that was constantly being cut to during the convention. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Yamiche Alcindor. She is the PBS NewsHour White House correspondent, and PBS was going to her throughout the night. This is her take on Madison Cawthorn standing. She says, Madison Cawthorn made it a point to stand, suggesting that all Americans should stand during the Pledge of Allegiance and national anthem. It was a direct rebuke of actions by people, including black athletes who are currently sitting out games protesting police brutality. That was her hot take. He didn't say any of that. All he said was, for this republic, for which I stand, one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all. He didn't say indivisible. That was interesting. I don't know if that was a mistake or not. But that was her hot take. Let's put that up on the screen one more time. I want to make sure I don't misquote it. Her hot take was that it was a direct rebuke of actions by people, including black athletes, who were protesting police brutality. So they're trying to slander a disabled congressional candidate and saying that the very fact that he stood up out of his wheelchair was a direct rebuke to black people. I mean, this is what we're dealing with, folks. This is how scummy Democrats are. Hit the share button. We're not done. We got a lot more of these clips to play. Hit that share button, like the video, and leave some comments. Let's get this out there, because that woman, Yamiche Alcindor, I don't even care if I mispronounced her name. She's a troll. She's always asking stupid questions in the briefings. The mainstream media isn't going to cover her statements. I mean, Fox might for a segment or two. But she should be out of a job. According to the Democrats' rules, the cancel culture rules, if you slander someone who is disabled, that's supposed to be it. That's supposed to be a death blow to your career. You're supposed to be finished. But no, because she's the PBS White House correspondent, she can literally criticize a disabled man for having the guts to stand up out of his wheelchair. And I understand that that is pre-taped. That section was pre-taped. You can tell because at one point, Mike Pence's wife gave a speech in one outfit, and literally like 10 minutes later, she was in a different state wearing a different outfit. That part was pre-recorded, fine. They made it look live by having it be streamlined. Obviously, it's pre-recorded, and if he fell, they'd be able to do another take. But it's still brave for him, even with those leg braces, to stand up like that. The man is disabled. He has no use of his legs from the waist down. He stood up, and they wanted to cancel him for it. And say that he's against black people for standing up. It's disgusting. Really is disgusting. All right, let's keep going. This was a really powerful one. So if you don't know this story, Ryan Holitz, I believe he's a police officer from the Southwest. I don't remember which specific state. I think it'll show up once we play the video. He was a police officer who found a pregnant woman doing drugs. And he basically said, what are you doing? Don't you realize it's hurting your baby? And the woman was so addicted, she couldn't help it. She knew it was wrong, but she couldn't help it. Ryan, this police officer, meeting a woman he never even met before, ended up adopting her baby to give the baby a better life. This was a powerful speech that I think is probably going to be overshadowed by some of the more powerful other speeches. But it's powerful nonetheless, and I wanted to include it because it really is a heartfelt story. Let's go ahead and play cut 9.
Without hesitation, I told her that my family would welcome her baby through adoption. Today, our beautiful daughter Hope is a thriving 2-year-old. Crystal is fast approaching 3 years of recovery. She is a dear friend and a constant inspiration to me and others. I hold a special place in my heart for those facing opioid addiction, and that's why I'm enormously grateful to the President for his leadership in fighting this deadly enemy. Through his efforts, we're turning the tide on the crisis of addiction. President Trump declared the opioid crisis to be a public health emergency and then secured $6 billion in new federal funding to help Americans fight opioid abuse.
So that was powerful. Now, I can't say for sure. I don't remember it like completely. But I don't remember the DNC devoting any significant time to drug abuse, to addiction. They might have mentioned it. I don't remember an entire speaker or a couple of speakers, which we had during the RNC. I don't remember them devoting this much time to the issue of addiction. And it makes you wonder why. It makes you wonder why. Why is it that Republicans are the ones fighting to try and help people who are addicted? And listen, being addicted to drugs is a disease. It is a disease, just like being addicted to cigarettes, just like being an alcoholic. These people are not evil. They've made mistakes. The drug dealers, the people pushing the drugs, they're the evil ones. They're the ones that know what it does to them and are killing people to turn a profit. But the users, the people who were given a prescription for painkillers, become addicted. The prescription lapses and their body's craving something, so they go to heroin, right? They're victims in this. They have a disease. I don't remember the Democrats highlighting that. And I thought that was a really powerful speech from a law enforcement officer. And it creates a very stark contrast where the Democrats are basically claiming that police officers are evil, that police departments are systemically racist, institutionally racist. What does that mean? That means it's racist to its very core. That's what Joe Biden has said. He has said that individual police departments are racist to their core. Imagine how horrible of a person you have to be to just declare with a broad brush, I almost said whole cloth, but broad brush, that an entire group of law enforcement officers are racist to their core. I thought that the RNC did a great job of showing that and then highlighting the humanity of police officers, because they're just like us. They're just like me and you. They want to go home safe. They want to see their families at night, and they care about their communities. And that officer is a hero because he could have probably arrested that woman. He probably could have recommended that the prosecutor throw the book at her, but instead he got her help and he adopted her baby. Very, very powerful. Let's go ahead and play this. This was Abby Johnson. Anyone who doesn't know, Abby Johnson used to work at Planned Parenthood. And Abby Johnson has since left Planned Parenthood. And if you've ever read her book, or if you've seen her movie Unplanned, or if you've heard her speak, she is very, very fiery. She is very, very impassioned about the need to protect preborn babies from the scourge of abortion. And she completely takes responsibility for the role she played as a Planned Parenthood employee in snuffing out those babies' lives. It breaks her up. This was a clip of her speech. Democrats hated this. MSNBC didn't cover it. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but we'll play a little bit of it. Let's play cut 8.
They can't even conceive of the barbarity. They don't know about the products of conception room and abortion clinics where infant corpses are pieced back together to ensure nothing remains in the mother's wombs, or that we joked and called it the pieces of children room. You see, for me, abortion is real. I know what it sounds like. I know what abortion smells like. Did you know abortion even had a smell? I've been the perpetrator to these babies, to these women, and I now support President Trump because he has done more for the unborn than any other president.
Powerful. I've heard her speak. She spoke at a fundraiser for a pregnancy center in Las Vegas that I volunteer with. I donate my time to. I listened to her speak last year for probably 2 hours. Last year, very powerful speaker. I like that she had her thoughts condensed, because I've seen what happens when she gets off on tangents. Very, very interesting, but I think it's much more effective when it's a pre-written speech and she's able to package her ideas. And that line, did you know that abortion had a smell? Democrats are furious at that line because it's so effective. Like lines like that force you to think. Say, no, I never even thought about what an abortion clinic smelled like, what an operating room smelled like. Democrats are furious. You actually had Planned Parenthood employees, officials, pro-abortion people coming out and declaring that that was a lie, that abortion doesn't have a smell and they should know. Think about that for a second. Think about how horrible a person it would take for someone to have so much experience conducting abortion that they would come forward as an authoritative source to say, actually, abortion doesn't have a smell. And I can tell you from experience. I mean, that's what the left doesn't even realize it. They walk right into the buzzsaw with their fact checks on that. I don't want to hear from anyone who unapologetically has been in so many abortion procedures that they claim that there's no smell involved. I don't want to hear from that person. That person's disgusting. Right? Abby Johnson, she's apologized. She's dedicated her life to righting the wrongs that she helped facilitate. But anyone who's still in that room, anyone who hasn't seen the error of their ways, I don't want to hear a word from them. I don't want a single fact check out of their mouth because they can't be trusted, right? She talked in her speech about how Planned Parenthood does sell the body parts of aborted children. That's true. Now, the debate is over whether or not they profit from it because federal law says they're not allowed to profit from it. They're allowed to sell the body parts as long as they don't turn a profit. So it's just for their time and effort. But you're not supposed to talk about that. People are saying that today's podcast, they're having a hard time sharing it. I wonder why. We're saying everything on this podcast the mainstream media didn't want to cover in the last 4 days. We're talking about things that the mainstream media wouldn't, in a million years talk about. You couldn't find Abby Johnson's speech on MSNBC. Anyone who watched MSNBC did not hear that line about abortion having a smell. And that is because MSNBC does not want to let the truth get out there. Anytime someone talked about abortion, they cut away because they cannot risk someone having the unedited ability to fact check them. Because for years, they've claimed that abortion is health care. How can killing someone be health care? And that's why they cut away. That's why they didn't let you see any of that. On MSNBC, PBS cut away, ABC News cut away, CNN cut away for at least one of the abortion speakers. It challenges their orthodoxy. The idea that an abortion clinic is just like any other doctor's office. I can tell you what a doctor's office smells like. I've been in tons of them. Like a regular physician's office, it has a distinct smell. Just like a dentist's office has a distinct smell. To claim that she's lying, that abortion clinics where they're doing abortion procedures doesn't have a smell to it, that's the fact check. That's what we got last night from the mainstream media. That's their fact check. Hit that share button if you haven't already. Like the video. Continue commenting. Let's play a few more. This was really powerful. Maximo Alvarez. This guy had me in tears too, and I didn't even expect that at all. Maximo Alvarez was brought to this country by his parents from Cuba. And his parents told him, do not lose this place because there's no other place like it. I couldn't find an easy cut of this clip, but one of my favorite lines from Maximo Alvarez, I said this earlier on another episode of the podcast, my favorite line is when he talked about how he fled communism, comparing Biden to Fidel Castro. That was brilliant. But he had this line that stuck with me. And there's only been a few lines like that have really, we were playing our drinking game, so that might be why. I was also fact checking and monitoring cutaways, but there were a few lines from the RNC that really stuck with me. And the line that he said that really stuck with me was he said he sees the socialism coming out of the Democrat ticket this year. And he is seeing, quote, shadows that he thought he had outrun. I thought that was just so well written. I don't know if he wrote that or someone wrote it for him. It was so well written because it just sums it up. I don't know. It's one of those. I thought that was one of the best lines of the whole RNC. Whoever wrote that deserves a raise because it really does paint the picture. It really does paint the picture. And you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of, what was that movie? The Disney movie, Princess and the Frog. It was an animated movie. There was one character in the movie called the Shadow Man, and he had these shadows that were following him everywhere. And it just made me think of that. And I don't know why. It's just the first thing that came to my mind. And the ideas of the shadows following you. And also the idea that you never really can outrun your shadow. Your shadow is always going to be there. So I don't want to go beyond too far into it, but as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, wow, it's really poignant. But it also suggests that your shadow is always going to be there. You're never going to outrun your shadow. Socialism is always going to be there knocking on our door, either less than 100 miles off the coast of Florida in Cuba or in the Democrat convention, right? There's always going to be socialism knocking at our door, trying to sneak their way in. And that's when Ronald Reagan's line of our country, we are never more than a generation away from losing our republic. I mean, that right there. He reminded him of shadows he thought he had outrun. And no, socialism is always going to be there. And it's up to all of us collectively to fight back because, listen, they only have to be successful once, right? They only have to be successful once. They only have to get a socialist in the Oval Office once. They only have to get Democrat control of the House and Senate once. They do that, and the damage they will do is immeasurable. We have to get it right countless times because they're constantly pushing this. The stakes have never been higher. So that is why I really liked that line. It really stuck with me. Let me know what other lines stuck with you. Leave a comment in the comment section, and let me know what line stuck the most with you. I want to see if there was any other line that you thought was as poignant as that. John Bear Wallace, you've been banned, calling us a hypocrite, saying that Trump's not a Christian. Okay. Bye-bye, John. Let me know in the comment section what line stood out most to you. So we have a couple more of these to go through. Let me see. How many more do we have? We have a couple more. Okay. Let's play this clip. This is, where'd it go? I just had it. Let's play. Oh, how can I forget? Tim Scott. Tim Scott had the line of the night when he spoke, without a doubt. When he said that his family, that you can't say the country is systemically racist when he was able, in one lifetime, his family, to go from cotton to Congress. I thought that was such an effective line. Let's go ahead and play cut 12.
Our family went from cotton to Congress in one lifetime. And that's why I believe the next...
So, cut it a little early, but that line, I thought was the best line. I thought that was the best line of that night, hands down. And here's the problem. There were so many good moments that once you see that, you almost forget the other speeches. But they were all equally as powerful, right? I didn't think that there was a single speech that was terrible. Now, there was a couple of people that were doing, there was one guy who worked in the lumber trade. Yeah, Lovey just said Eric Trump gave a great speech. He did. Sherry, did you play the paraplegic who stood up? Yes, we did. And we also covered how PBS's White House correspondent criticized him for basically condemning black athletes who kneel. Amazing. There were a few that probably weren't as powerful as the rest. When they brought up business owners, they brought up a dairy farmer. They brought up someone who worked in the lumber industry. Last night they had someone, I believe, who works in bronze manufacture, bronze smelting. It's the thing that you don't expect, right? You're not going to get any standing ovations to the person who makes ornamental knickknacks out of bronze, right? You're not. But you get the story that she was losing her business to China. And with government help and with innovation, she was able to basically revolutionize her business so she could stay in business. She's one of the only companies left that continues to manufacture things out of bronze in the United States. I thought that was great. But it was those things that probably weren't as powerful as the other ones, but they still were very effective. And they still told a story that needed to be told. The problem was mainstream media didn't cover them. A lot of times, if you weren't related to Trump or if you weren't in the cabinet, at least, they weren't showing your speech. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. ABC News probably was the worst. PBS was the worst, where they spent the entire night talking to that evil woman, Yamiche Alcindor, giving her a microphone, basically, to say how horrible the Republican president is. And then they finally cut to his speech at the end of the night. Yeah, Sherry's saying the guy from Maine with the lobster, I thought that he told a story. You didn't expect that, right? But it still was a story that's important to tell. There was another thing. I tried to find it this morning. I couldn't find it. I'll see if I can find it and post it on our page. It was yesterday when they were talking to people who ran public housing in New York. And they're talking about how Bill de Blasio has abandoned them, and how Donald Trump and his administration have gotten them more funding so that they can take care of their public housing units. Very effective. They had a montage yesterday of Democrats who had woken up and seen the error of their ways and said, wait a minute, what am I doing? Right? One woman said, I used to be a socialist, and now I'm voting for Donald Trump. That was great. I tried to find that this morning. I couldn't find it. Very, very effective. The whole week. The whole week was great. And the Democrats call it divisive and evil and negative. Yeah, you're going to get some of that. You're going to get some of that talking about just how damaging a Joe Biden administration would be. But you also got a lot of hope. You also got a lot of hope for the future and hope that better things were yet to come. So I expected Joe to be on, but since he's not on, we finished a little quicker than I thought. But I have one more clip that I want to play. And I thought this one was... Oh, did I not play the Maximo clip yet? I don't think I played the Maximo clip. Oh, I have two clips. I've been talking so much, I forgot to play the Maximo clip. Let's go ahead and play that Maximo Alvarez clip. Thank you, Mr. Producer. You just messaged me. I completely forgot. Let's play this cut 11.
I'm speaking to you today because my family is done abandoning what we rightfully earned. There's no place to hide. I'm speaking to you today because President Trump may not always be politically correct. He's in fact a successful businessman, not your average career politician. Our president is just another family man, a friend, and most important, our elected commander-in-chief who puts America first.
Great. He had a great speech. If the convention ended that night, I think he would have had the best speech. But we heard from so many other speakers that we didn't. He's up there. Absolutely powerful speech. And then that was another theme that we saw repeated throughout the convention, which is that Donald Trump you may not like all the things Donald Trump says. You may not like his tweeting. You may not like how brash he is. You may not like how brutally honest he is. But the man, he does what he says, right? He means what he says, and he says what he means. Promises made, promises kept. I thought that RNC was very effective at admitting that people are hesitant about Donald Trump's brashness, but saying that that is no reason to usher in Democrat socialism. I thought very effective the whole evening. This last one I don't think this got enough credit. And I didn't know who this man was. Let me pull up his Wikipedia page so I can make sure His name is Chen Guangcheng. He is a blind Chinese civil rights advocate. He's worked on human rights issues in the rural areas of People's Republic of China. He escaped house arrest in 2012. He's being brutalized by the Chinese government. He escaped house arrest and fled to the embassy, the U.S. embassy in Beijing. He had to escape to get his freedom. Finally, he was granted visas to depart Beijing and go to New York City. And he's since accepted positions at different research organizations and a position at the Catholic University of America. Very powerful. Mainstream media didn't cover it. Shameful. Some of them did, most of them didn't. Chen Guangcheng, blind, stood up there and read a speech using Braille. I assumed that those existed. I'd never seen one used in an event like that. He has his hands up. He's reading the Braille. That's basically, I assume it's moving, and he can read it that way. Reading his speech by Braille. Let's go ahead and play cut 13.
Greetings. My name is Chen Guangcheng. Standing up to tyranny is not easy, I know. When I spoke out against China's one-child policy and other injustices, I was prosecuted, beaten, sent to prison, and put under house arrest by the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. In April 2012, I escaped and was given shelter in the American Embassy in Beijing. I'm forever grateful to the American people for welcoming me and my family to the United States, where we are now free. The CCP is an enemy of humanity. It is terrorizing its own people, and it is threatening the well-being of the world. In China, expressing beliefs or ideas not approved by the CCP, religion, democracy, human rights can lead to prison. The nation lives under mass surveillance and censorship. The U.S. must use its values of freedom, democracy, and the rule of law to gather a coalition of other democracies to stop CCP's aggression. President Trump had led on this, and we need the other countries to join him in this fight, a fight for our future. Standing up to fight unfairness isn't easy, I know. So does President Trump, but he has shown the courage to wage that fight. We need to support, vote, and fight for President Trump for the sake of the world. Thank you.
So I wanted to play his speech in full, and I didn't edit that. You got his full speech. As I want to talk about, yeah, Robert's saying most networks cut his speech out when they came on. They did, because most of those networks are bought and owned by the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, you look at MSNBC, their ownership structure, you trace that up to Comcast, right? You trace that up to the film studios that don't want to piss off China, right? They're bought and paid for. I didn't want to edit that speech at all because I wanted you to see it. And I want to explain what you were just witnessing. So this man grew up blind in mainland China. He learned Chinese to be able to speak Chinese, and then he learned one of the Chinese forms of Braille. The question I have is obviously he learned English later. He had to learn English to be able to say that. But he also had to learn American Braille. There are two different systems of Braille. So he's speaking his fourth language, right? Because it's not just being able to speak English; it's also being able to feel the Braille and figure out in your mind what word that is, and then figure out how you're supposed to say that in English. I mean, the amount of mental energy I've taken foreign languages. Many people have. It can take serious focus to be able to speak in another language. Not being able to see, using your fingers to read Braille in something that's not your original language, to then speak in a tongue that is not your original tongue, and to do all of that in front of the American people on a national stage. I don't know. I'm sure that he probably just says, this is what I do. And that's it. But that speech, I wanted to play that speech in full because that took more for him to give that speech than any other speaker on that stage, because he was blind. He had to read in Braille and then speak in a language that is not his original tongue. That was one of my favorite moments of the convention, because you had, and this is, again, the stark difference. At the RNC, you had someone go up on stage and say the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, is an enemy to humanity. He said that. Mainstream media outlets cut away. Democrats didn't say that at all. Joe Biden says that he applauded when China advanced. Joe Biden pushed through, you heard Trump last night, pushed through NAFTA, helped China get into the World Trade Organization, toasted China's leaders and said, you're doing a great job, welcome to the world economy. Meanwhile, China's stealing all of our jobs, our intellectual property, right? Democrats are the party of China. What someone said Beijing Biden during the convention, or Chinese Biden. No, they said that Biden's campaign was written in Chinese. They said something that was really, really great. I'll see if I can find that later. But I wanted to play that speech in full because it really was one of the most epic speeches of the week. Having a Chinese defector give a speech in Braille and speak in a language that was not his original tongue. Well, let me know what your favorite moments were. We didn't have a chance to do all of them. Can't fit 4 nights into 1 hour episode of a podcast. Just can't. Let me know in the comment section what your favorite one was. And I'll be posting these today, these clips today. Anyone who said that they really want to see the one where they had the minstrel show playing, we'll be posting that right after we come off air. I'll be posting that on the Facebook page and just saying, and which like the line, like, look at how ridiculous this is. This is what the Democrats edited. So if you want it, you can get it there and you'll be able to share it to people. But leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what your favorite moments were, because those were my favorite moments. And I didn't get to include Mike Pence's speech. It was great. Didn't get to include Melania Trump's speech. That was great. Mike Pence's wife, she did a good speech. It wasn't like a barnstormer, right? But it was still a great speech. All the speeches in my mind were very good. Yeah, Robert just said Pam Bondi. I didn't even get to include her because we're out of time. But every time she gave a speech, every time she went on, she just kept listing the crimes. And there was at one point where she starts talking about South America, and I'm just like, oh, they're going to South America. Pam Bondi did a great speech too. They all were great speeches. So let me know in the comment section what your favorite speech of the night was. And we'll be posting a lot of these to our page throughout the day today. Well, that's going to be it for this edition of the podcast. Remember that if this is your first time watching the podcast, please do like and follow our page so that you can get notifications when we go live. We go live every day, Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern with our daily podcast. So make sure you check back for that. We're also going to be going live tonight with Trump has a rally in New Hampshire. Joe Biden says he'll be able to win his campaign from inside of his home in his basement. Donald Trump is campaigning the first day after the convention. So we're going to be showing that, and I'm going to try and have it set up. I won't be hosting it, but we'll have it set up so you can see in real time when CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC are cutting away. So make sure you look for that. If you want to also subscribe to our podcast, please do it in audio form. You can do so. We're pretty much everywhere at this point. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and Podbean. So if you want to help the show, subscribe on audio. That way, if you can't make it to one of these, you can at least listen as you go about your day. We usually post them a couple hours after we go live with the video form. And if you're listening to the audio and you want to check out the video, we go live on Facebook and YouTube Monday through Friday, as I said, at 2 p.m. Eastern. If you are on Parler, make sure you follow us at Conservative Daily, all one word, and we'll be happy to follow you back. And there's a link at the top of our description to join our newsletter. This is important because if Facebook drops the ban hammer on us and stops us from doing these streams, that email newsletter list is how we're going to be able to get the word out that we're on another platform. We also use that to send out action alerts to let you know what's going on in Washington, D.C., so you can take action before Democrats and rhinos push something through. So check out all the links in the description. And again, thank you for helping support the channel. Well, that's going to be it for this edition. Again, my name is Max McGuire. Joe Otto couldn't make it today. Hopefully we can get him back in on Monday. But remember that the fight to take back our country clearly isn't over. But the only way we win is if we all stand and fight together.